Hello, I'm Lisa. I'm part of the learning team here at Nottingham Contemporary, and I'm in the show by Assemble and Schools of Tomorrow, the place we imagine. Assemble are a collective of artists and designers that are based in London, and there's between 19 and 22 members. And the Schools of Tomorrow is a programme that I manage, and it's a 4-year Paul Hamlin funded programme where we are working with 8 partner schools. 7 of those are primary and 1 of them is a nursery, and we place 5 of our associate artists within those schools throughout the 4 years. Schools of Tomorrow programme is an action-led research inquiry programme, and each school has their own inquiry question that they're wanting to follow. The exhibition came about Assemble's interest in Lina Bo Bardi. Lina had produced an image of a playground in front of the MAST building, and there was only one image that was produced, and it was just a drawing of a playground in front of the building, which at the time the country was under a dictatorship and the building was actually used as offices rather than as its purpose as a museum. And so this drawing poked a little bit of fun around the politics of play. So we see in the image these wonderful sculptures that she's drawn with children playing and having fun in this public area, and her sort of vision for that space was about it being owned by the public and being taken over, and Assemble were very interested in that narrative. And the alignment with Schools of Tomorrow is very much about that programme being child-led, being directed through inquiry, and quite a lot of those inquiries in the schools were directed through play. So there seemed quite a lot of connection between what Assemble were looking at with Lina and what was happening in our Schools of Tomorrow programme. One of the interesting things within the programme is that each school develops a creative hub, and that creative hub is a dynamic space. It's a movable space, and it's about showcasing their art. It's about sharing their art. It's about doing workshops. It's about discussion and dialogue. So it's about them taking ownership of that space. So Assemble seemed a direct interest in the correlation between the two. We invited Assemble to come along and actually take a look at what was happening in our schools and to work with our associate artists. Assemble looked at this image that they were really drawn to by Lina, and none of these sculptures were ever made, none of these play pieces were ever made. So what they did, they really zoomed in on the images to find out a little bit more about them. And then they decided to make 2 of the pieces that were identified within her drawing. What they had to do was use a bit of artistic license in what materials were used, the scale, and they were trying to work this all out from the drawing. So they selected the big tall building with big tall sculpture with slides down, which they've titled the Big Red, and they also selected what appears to be a bit of an animal roundabout, and so they've titled that the Animal Menagerie. And you can see those both here at Nottingham Contemporary in the show. Assemble wanted to develop a 3rd sculpture, and what they thought would be really great is to hear directly from the children. And because some of our schools had already been exploring play, they thought it was a good idea for a collaboration for a project. So Assemble have worked closely with us over the past 2 years, going into our settings and also exploring how the children are here as well within the galleries and within our spaces. So the idea was to create a 3rd sculpture, which was designed by the children, but realised by Assemble. So you can see behind me, we've got the fun house. Assemble worked really closely with Robin Hood Primary School and their pupils to develop what they've titled the fun house. It's very much about Assemble observing the children playing as well with their associate artists. And they noticed that they wanted to run, they wanted to climb, they wanted to hide. And these were through workshops with their associate artist, Laura Eldrett. After they'd observed quite a few of the sessions, they then went back into the school and just produced a mound of clay on the table. They spoke about Lina, they spoke about her idea of children taking over, they spoke about her unrealised playground that they were trying to recreate 2 of the elements for, and they required a 3rd element. So they got together, children got stuck in, they discussed ideas, and they produced a final model. So each child produced an element, and then they collaborated as a group to actually produce one final design. Assemble then took this design and developed a play structure from it with the elements that the children requested that they would like to see. So they wanted an element of, they described it as a tree with a canopy. They described it as something they could climb on. They wanted something they could hide in. And they also wanted some bits which were movable. And they also spoke about, wouldn't it be great if it could have sound underneath the canopy as well? So Assemble took the ideas and also the model and developed their ideas into the fun house. And when you actually come and visit, you'll notice that there's also a sound element that's incorporated into the fun house from the children at Nottingham Nursery with their artist, Sean Watson Taylor. And it's quite subtle, but as you go round, you can actually press in some areas and you'll get the sounds of the nursery. So this is the animal menagerie. We've got 8 animals here, and they're quite large. So they're about 2 metres in length, 1 metre in height, and about ½ metre wide. And whilst the design is directly taken from Lina's drawing, quite a lot of the scale was derived from the work that Assemble did within our schools, particularly the nursery school, how they noticed that the smaller children wanted to take these heavy, sort of cumbersome objects and move them, some, objects that were way bigger than they were, and how they had to work in pairs to negotiate how they were going to move this from A to B. So that element is really lovely to be incorporated into this piece. This is the big red that you see behind me, has a series of 5 slides that go all the way round, as well as steps. This is directly taken from Lina's design, from her drawing, but it's been interpreted into materials that Assemble thought would be suitable. It's the 2nd iteration. The first one was at the Bentway in Ontario in Canada last year, and it was an outdoor placed sculpture. So the materials were very different, and it was also a lot bigger. So it's actually been downsized to fit into our gallery, and it only really just fits. In addition to the 3 sculptures that you'll see in this exhibition, there's also work from all of our Schools of Tomorrow schools featured throughout the exhibition, mainly on the perimeters of the walls. So behind me, we've got the alphabet, which was actually designed by Milford Academy and their associate artist, Laura Eldrett. And you can see this is also featured in the large typographical quotes that are also displayed within the exhibition. And you'll also find it on our exhibition notes as well. You might find some small narratives around the room. Some of them are quite hidden and quite difficult to find, but that is about seeking and searching. And it also provides a different play element, a creative thinking element to play rather than a physical play, one that actually promotes role play and it promotes storytelling. And that's by Peter Rumney and his school, Melbury Primary School. We also have a series of posters, which are play prompts, which are done by Robin Hood Primary School with their artist, Laura Eldrett. And these are a call out to adults to come and play. It's what the children thought that adults should hear, or what they should say to adults in order to encourage them to come and play with them. You will also find some film projections in the room. These are from the Nottingham Nursery School with their artist, Sean Watson Taylor. And the children have worn GoPro cameras on their heads and on their chests so that we get a vision of what they can see and what they are doing. We get an idea of how they play. These are displayed quite high. So what's quite interesting is when we view them, we actually become the child and we are looking up to the films as a child would to an adult. There are some annotated illustrations from the Jubilee Lead Academy with their artist Gillian Brent that you'll be able to see displayed. And there's also an accompanying film of the children making. So they explore in their school making by doing. And you can see them creating these sculptures, which they then turn into play sculptures. And that's on a monitor in one of our galleries. You'll also find another film in the gallery alongside the Jubilee Lead Academy film, which is done by Melbury Primary School and their artist Peter Rumney. And this is where the narratives have been taken from. So it's a film that they've shot in the grounds of their school, of the sort of natural environment that they are allowed to explore at their school. And the narrative that fits alongside it is about what if there's a creature there, what might happen, what might they discover, what marks has this creature left. You will also see a piece by Edna G. Olds Academy with their artist Charlotte Tupper, which is based around rules. The children had developed their own rules at school around the games that they were doing in the playground, and so we thought it was the perfect opportunity to ask them what they would do with the rules that are usually expected when you come to a gallery. So that one is a really interesting piece, and you can also interact with it. Southwell Primary School were very interested in immersive environments, so we've given them the invitation of creating the immersive environment for our family activities this summer.